everyone. Welcome. I'm Linda Mariano, Managing Director of Marketing for Redwood Art Group. And I'm joined today by Alissa Van Atta. Alissa is a wonderful artist that has been doing the Redwood Art Fairs for several years. So welcome, Alissa. Thanks for joining me.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Linda.
So tell us a little bit about when and how you decided to make art your career.
I've always done art, so it's kind of just like from as soon as I could pick up a crayon, it's always been a part of me. And I remember stressing my high school years of like, what am I gonna do for, the rest of my life? Oh my God, freaking out. And just art's always been there. So I kind of just made a deal with my dad that instead of art school, that yes, I would get an art degree at um a regular college and get something else too. And I ended up just doing art and got my BFA with a painting and art history concentration. He always thought I should have added accounting on top of that too. But it's just how my brain works is like I could only focus on one thing. So I would have to take all my other classes like in the summertime because all I wanted to do is art. Um, and I graduated and I came back home for a little bit. My mom was like, you have to make money, right? I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of got derailed into the world of retail.
Oh,
Um, but art was just always something there that I knew I had talent. And it was just a matter of leaving that world of retail. And I did pick up a few things that definitely helped with customers and how to display and things like that. So it definitely had some pluses to it. But it was leaving, and I guess I really didn't make the complete jump until my mom died. Um, that was about 8 years ago. And it just occurred to me like you only live once, if not now, when? And that's basically when I just dove head first and was like, let's do this as a full-time thing. So since then it's been a matter of like figuring out what works, what doesn't, and getting comfortable with calling myself a full-time artist.
yeah. And I think that's interesting. I didn't know that about you, that you had that retail background, because that's part of my background too. And I do think that it comes into play so many times, and in so many different ways. You might not have done what your dad suggested and gotten that degree in accounting, but you learned about it from that retail management experience for sure. Uh,
Exactly. And I was part of like a designer brand. So I wasn't selling like the $35 khakis. I was selling like $1,000 jackets and things like that. So even in that world, the clientele was different, the approach was different. And I see a lot of things mirror in how I view who comes up and looks at my work. I kind of sit back and kind of just pick up little clues on that. And
yeah.
that's all
And
because
yeah, that's that's perfect. Um, so what is your work philosophy, and how do you decide, and how does that work philosophy um impact the art that you create?
basically like my main philosophy is show up every day. So even if I'm not feeling like things are coming together, and I figure I'd make a big old mess, I go back to something a little bit more like sketching and just thinking up ideas, doing like the stuff that I hate doing, like the behind the scenes, making sure all my inventory and things like that. So it doesn't have to always be in the studio, but my mind frame is centered on get something done, at least feel like you've put in a day's work. And I basically like to do that in the beginning of the day so I can kind of go whoosh, I'm done, and then kind of go from there. But it's also something that sticks with you. So you're not off the clock. It's always marinating. So like even just getting some ideas out that have been festering. It's just a matter of getting it to show some way, even if I make a note of it, just showing up every day. And then I also like to challenge myself. If something didn't happen or if it's like a timing technique, then that gives me time to work on those things.
Yeah. Well, and I know other artists that do exactly what you're saying, and some of them start every day with painting, with creating, and end the day with, I'll call it, bookwork. Whatever that might be, making arrangements for fairs, putting out, invoices, reaching out, creating social media posts, that kind of thing. Or the other way around. However it works best. I think that really your approach and your advice of, work every day, get to it and be productive. So, what do you think was the best advice you've ever received, and how have you used that?
Um, During my senior seminar, I was very fortunate to have a mentor who was also my senior seminar instructor and also was my instructor for abstract art. And I didn't listen. I'm learning the hard thing now is, yeah, show up every day. Um, Work on developing yourself as an artist. And loosen up. Um, and that was not only with my technique, because I used to be very precise. Um, and I think also loosening up like your mind frame of like it has to go this way. Because basically anything that I've ever done, the plan kind of just goes this way and I go that way. So no matter how much I think it should be this way, I've learned to loosen up like my expectations and just kind of go with the flow. And I have to remind myself of that all the time. It's like it's not a failure if it didn't work out. I learned something different.
Well, and sometimes it's the way it wants to be.
Yeah.
And if you are open to observing that, when I was in retail, I worked a lot with store design, and we were on premise in a store, and the the architect, the designer said to me, well, Linda, I think this wants to be, an arch here. And I said, Bill, what are you talking about? And he said, just think about, the way that it would be in the whole space. And, it was stepping out of what I thought it might be. But what I learned from that is sometimes you do have a perceived notion of what something should be, but maybe you haven't explored what it could be. And that's really what you're talking about. And I think that there's a learning in all of that. Absolutely. So what do you do to market yourself and your art?
Basically just being visible as possible as I can be, whether it be through online with my website or Instagram. Instagram's a beast on itself. I think it's harder now to get more of an audience. But at least it's something there that people can go, okay, this person does art. So it's another little portfolio. The main thing with marketing I've learned is meeting people. So getting into art organizations, doing fairs. Um, you never know who you meet that has a connection to so and so. So it's kind of just getting to know that person one on one. And sometimes it's the weirdest thing of who knows such and such, and it ends up being a small world, or yeah, I'm an artist and things spark from there. But growing it organically is kind of what I've been on, because it's kind of been the proven method of what's gotten me sales, collectors, and a little bit of a following. So I definitely like to grow that more.
I notice that you do that so well. At the art fairs, you're right there, you're standing up, you're very approachable, and most of the times when I walk by your booth, you're talking to somebody. Whether it's another artist, maybe it's, the exhibitor that's next to you. But I think that that's a really good point because you don't ever know what a connection. Maybe they're, just visiting the fair, looking at art, and they have an experience with you. And 6 months from now, they're contacting you and saying, do you still have that piece? Or is there a piece like that one? And you don't ever know what all of those connections, how they might play out, and the myriad of ways that they can play out. So I
Exactly. And just doing those again, like I don't even think like it has to be a complete like slam dunk. I've done the same fair a year later and they go, "Oh, I remember you because of this, da da da," or that conversation we had. And I'm like, "Oh, that's so sweet." Like it just you remembered me too, and that was nice. So it's a slower process, but it's still you made an impact on them and they'll remember you. So you can still strengthen that.
Well, and I think that that's the strength also of really building your presence in a marketplace. And when you do fairs that aren't in your environment, aren't in your neighborhood, aren't in your community, but you go to another city. Now you're in another marketplace and you've got an opportunity there, but sometimes it's not being there once that's going to create the opportunity. It's that comeback. And it's that second year or the third year that you're there that somebody who's a regular, who comes every year and sees you every year, and then it kind of cements the deal.
Exactly.
It verifies for them that you're the real deal and that you're in it. uh,
Yeah,
and I think that that's also appealing to collectors. Plus they learn about more about you each time, and that's
exactly.
really what they're buying. They're buying you, your story, and your artwork.
And they have the funniest stories. Like they, once they have a piece or something about you, it's like they have a piece that moment with you that they'll tell whoever comes to their home or whatever about that moment with you. I mean, they just eat it up. It's just funny
Yeah,
how the little things
absolutely.
that they take away.
I can tell you a story about each of the pieces of art that are hanging on the wall behind me, and every single piece that's in my house. And so, one of the things that I always say is, well, the artwork is a souvenir of the experience. Um, Maybe you were on vacation and you bought something.
Yeah,
Um, Maybe you fell in love, you were at art fair and you fell in love with Alissa and you took something home. So you're not gonna talk about the blues or the pinks that are in the piece of artwork. You're gonna talk about the artist and the experience, and that really, I think, goes so far to solidifying the relationship with the artist and the artwork. So what has been your greatest success in terms of really building your career and your client base? Would you say it's the fairs, the social media, or the combination?
probably a combination. I think both go hand in hand and help promote each other. It's also helped me fair specifically. I get to see the person's reaction or just who's walking by, how the general public thinks of my work. Or I overhear comments and okay, things I learned from them, just even talking about my work, if I'm just not exactly in the conversation to help. And that also helps me think about what I'm going to make, and that hits home with that person and who I'm targeting online. Then, it helps pinpoint of the direction I want to go into, work wise, my message. And basically what I've learned is just be authentic to yourself. People like that. Um, and it's taken me a while to figure out, okay, what really gets me going? What energy can I find behind this piece or this message that I want to talk about in a visual way that other people pick up on that or find interesting. And it's just a matter of finding those people by doing fairs, by targeting online like keywords and SEO, those wonderful things. So they definitely do go hand in hand.
So is there any particular advice you would give to an aspiring artist?
It's tough. Um, And oftentimes you're your own worst enemy. So my advice would be surround people that genuinely want you to succeed, that support you, and remind yourself that it's not an overnight thing. This is a marathon. So if you don't do great one day at some event, it does not mean it's over or you're a complete failure. And I mean, we all play mind tricks with ourselves. So it's just reminding yourself to just show up every day. That was a learning experience, and move forward.
Mhm. Great advice, really great advice. So it's been terrific having a conversation with you. Thank you so much. And I know the artists that watch this will benefit greatly from your insights. Thank you.
Well, thank you.